Whenever I make a lighting tutorial, there's always at least one person in the comments asking me about my camera settings, but almost no one asks why I picked them. Simply giving you my settings is like handing you a recipe. It might help you recreate one photograph, but it doesn't teach you the most important part about those settings. So right now, I'm not going to give you a recipe. I'm going to teach you how to cook. Welcome to Adorama TV. My name is Gary Hughes, and if you are new to studio lighting or have been at it for a while and still feel like you're struggling, I think I may know why. You're doing it backwards. Let me explain. When photographers are working with natural or available light, we usually have limited control over the light that's already there, so it makes sense to adjust the camera settings to the conditions, right? In the studio, I do the opposite. I decide what I need the portrait to look like, choose the camera settings that'll help me get there, and then adjust the lights to match. I adjust the lights to the camera. For photographers used to shooting with available light, that can feel completely backwards at first, but once it clicks, studio photography gets a whole lot easier. Let me show you. Aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, the three controls in the exposure triangle, all have the ability to make an image brighter or darker. So that means there are several different combinations of those settings that can produce a correct exposure. The difference is that those different combinations won't produce the same portrait. That's because each of those settings has secondary effects, something about them that changes the way the image looks and feels aside from the brightness. Aperture affects your depth of field. Shutter speed affects motion and controls how much ambient light appears in the image. ISO affects detail, dynamic range, and how much power you need from your strobes. So if several different combinations of settings can produce the same exposure, then it only makes sense to choose those settings because of the other effects they have on the image, right? So here's my process. First, I decide what the portrait needs. Then I choose the settings based on those needs. Once I have the settings locked in, I adjust the lights to match those settings. Here's an example. I've got a new canvas backdrop, and I want to create a full-length self-portrait in a classical style to show off the rich detail and texture. Here's how I pick the settings. Shutter speed first. There shouldn't be any motion, but I want to make sure to filter as much of the ambient light out as possible so I have total control over the light in the image. So I pick 1/160th of a second, high enough to keep motion out of the image, but not so high that I go over my camera's flash sync speed. I'm not going to get into it here, but my fellow Adorama TV hosts David Bergman and Gavin Hoey both have great videos about sync speed right here on this channel that I'll link in the description for you to check out later. Next is aperture. The depth of field here is important to me because I really want to have myself sharp head to toe while keeping the rich texture and detail in the background. F11 is a safe bet. Finally, ISO. A lot of photographers automatically choose the lowest ISO their camera offers in the studio. But ISO 400 still gives me excellent image quality with this camera, and it means my lights don't have to work as hard to reach f11. That gives me faster recycling and puts less strain on the batteries. Now all I need to do is set up my lights, use my light meter to measure the output, and adjust them until the lights match the settings I picked. Let's do one now that's completely different. I want to create a moody, artistic self-portrait with some motion in it. Shutter speed first.
I'm going to drag the shutter speed down to 1/2 second.
I've just got to remember to keep an eye on the light level in the studio, pulling my shades to keep it as dark as I can so I'm controlling all the light in the image. Aperture next. I'm going to shoot in pretty close with a mid-range lens, so setting the GFX 100S2 to f4 should give me a nice dreamy look. Finally, ISO. Because I'm dragging the shutter and shooting at f4, I'm already letting plenty of light into the camera, so I'm going to use the lowest ISO available, which is 80 on my camera. Now I place my lights where I want them, measure with my light meter, and adjust until the lights match my settings. From shoot to shoot and image to image, my settings change because the needs change. But my process stays the same. What does the portrait need? which settings will help me get that result. Then I lock in those settings, place my lights, measure, and adjust the lights to match. Learning studio lighting is very often about changing the way you think about exposure. With available light, you change the camera settings to match the light. In the studio, you adjust the light to match the camera settings. And you're not choosing your settings just to get a correct exposure from the existing light. You're choosing them because they have the power to change the way your portrait looks and feels. Let the portrait dictate the settings, then let the settings dictate the light. Once you've made those decisions, a light meter is one of the fastest and easiest ways to adjust your lights to match. My buddy Absise has a fantastic video on this channel showing you how to use one. It's only about 13 minutes long, and I'll link it in the description so you can check it out. Now, there's obviously a lot that goes into creating a great portrait. Camera settings are only one part of it, but they're an important part. So to help you put this into practice, I've created a free studio portrait settings guide that goes deeper into the decision-making process we covered in this video. It's not another list of magic numbers. It's a guide to help you decide which numbers make sense for the portrait you're creating. Sign up for Photographers Only, my free weekly email newsletter, and I'll send it to you. Every week, I also share a practical pro tip, links to my latest videos, and information about where I'll be teaching and speaking. You'll find the link in the description. And the next time you see camera settings in a photography tutorial, don't just ask what settings they used. Ask why. That's where the real lesson is. Thanks for watching Adorama TV. I'll see you next time.